I care about is spreading love, being kind to people, showing people that you can live without fear. To me, that's worth any risk.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Barb.
Hi,
How are you doing
Jeffrey.
today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
I know we already talked about the weather before we started recording.
Yes.
I am in beautiful sunny Los Angeles, California. Shock of the century, it's 72 degrees and sunny right now. Not to
And I
brag.
hope no forest fires.
Well, that is the thing. That is the thing that we do have to deal with occasionally. I am an activist. I'm an author. I wrote this book over my shoulder called How to Be You. That is a best-selling book from Penguin Random House. And I happen to be the first author with them to use they, them pronouns and to publicly identify as non-binary, to come out as non-binary. And I know you're going to intro yourself in just a moment, Barb, but I wanted to say first, what an honor it is to be talking to you today.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're very welcome. You are an inspiration, and your biography and your trajectory, you have fought. I don't want to put words in your mouth, so you stop me if I go too far.
Okay.
You have fought for the rights of all human beings throughout your life, as an educator, but also as a human being. And actually, I'll go farther than that. Not just humans, creatures. We were talking about your beautiful dog before we started recording. And to me, still to this day in 2022, so I'm famous on the internet, on Instagram, on TikTok, right? But there are still a lot of places where people like me do not get to speak, where our voice is not appreciated.
Oh, absolutely.
And so to come here and talk with you today is one of the great honors of my life. So thank you.
Well, gee, I feel I'm humbled. I'm humbled by this.
I'm humbled. You don't get to be humbled.
Oh,
You're the host.
No. Oh, thank you. So I'm Barb, and my pronouns are she and her, and I will be in January 80 years old. So I've had a long, long life, and a good life, really, with a lot of different travels.
Yeah.
And I started out as when I was about 10 years old, asking my mother why I loved girls rather than boys.
I told my mom when I was 11.
Did you?
We have so much in common.
Well, I think that's probably about that age where you begin to venture out in the world a little bit. Anyway, but I have to tell you, we were brought up staunch Catholics, and so she told me that I would be committing a mortal sin if I kept thinking those things. So you know what you do with that? You're terrified, and so I buried it. But that's right, and buried it. The salvation in when I was a teenager was I played the trumpet, and my trumpet saved my life because I could just take that trumpet and go play, just play it, and I played it very well.
That's amazing. I mean, because there are biblical references to how powerful trumpets are.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
That is true. That is true. But and now and anyhow, so I was also told that I was not college material. I could not survive in college, and that was during my high school years. So I was in things like a business arithmetic and shorthand and stuff like that. Anyway, so my trumpet really did get me through that period of time. But I then decided I could go to college. There were certain things I wanted as a child. I wanted to be married because that's what everybody did, right?
Yeah.
Be married. And I wanted to have children, and I wanted to be a teacher. So the only way I could do that,
did it.
I did it. I did it. I have two sons and grandsons, and
we're going to talk today about the trans community and what the words mean and what it's like and what's going on, but you made me think you've already presented a metaphor. I was thinking of, that trumpet saving your life.
Did.
And, stories from religion about, the one that popped into my mind was trumpets brought down the walls of Jericho. They were so powerful, right? Because my family was Lutheran.
Okay.
Very close to Catholic.
Well, you're
the next one down, right?
Missouri Synod?
My mom was a pastor.
Oh, okay.
So Missouri Synod was too conservative for us, and we were in the ELCA. But I'm glad you know all the lingo.
Well, I did because I taught at Concordia University, Chicago.
Oh, really?
Yes, I did. And actually, it's so interesting. I went into the Lion's Den in a couple places. I taught at Gonzaga University, and that's Jesuit. And then I ended my university career at Concordia University, Chicago, trying to teach teachers, undergrads, that children in their classroom were a variety of children, not two kinds.
Yes. Well, that's what I wanted to talk to you about.
I'm serious, yeah.
Because I remember being in pre-K. So I went to a program before kindergarten, and I remember getting in trouble for taking all of the dresses out of the dress up chest and stealing them.
Good for you.
I first got in trouble for putting them on. And then once I wasn't allowed to do that in pre-K, I just took them all to the corner of the room and sat with them, and then tried to take some home and got in trouble for that.
Oh, Jeffrey, I have to tell you, I taught 3, 4, and 5-year-olds in preschool.
Yeah. And
I provided all kinds of dresses. And I told the boys that they needed to learn to wear dresses.
Yes.
And the girls, they needed to learn to wear the little boy clothes. And they'd have so much fun just playing,
just having fun. So I have a question for you. Do you still play the trumpet right now?
No, I have not played it for a while.
I wanted a little concert. I thought maybe you had it.
I did. Yeah, no, it's if I played that trumpet here, they would just, I don't know what they would do.
They would get excited and happy.
They might. Yeah, they might. But I majored in it. I have a bachelor's in music, in major's trumpet. So I did that. So they told me I couldn't go to college, but I managed to do that. Well, then I managed to go on and get a master's degree in math. And then my PhD is in computers, media and computers.
Yes, and I would imagine that as a woman, you were told you shouldn't do that.
Absolutely.
Even maybe you can't do that.
Yes. Oh, yes, I was told I can't play the trumpet. Yeah. The story behind that is in 4th grade, and I said I wanted to play the trumpet. So my mother went down to this music store and rented a trumpet for 3 months. Didn't ask questions. She just did it. And when I took it the first time to the little practice, for 4th graders, I was told by the band director I couldn't play it because I was a girl. So I went home, told my mother. She said, she went to bat for me, actually. And she said, we bought it or rented it for 3 months. You give her 3 months. Well, that's all I needed. And I proved to that man that that's not what I was, you know, that I could play it.
Go mom.
Mhm.
I see so many parallels because I make videos. You know, I didn't know I was going to talk about this, but if you go into TikTok, so I make videos, and
Right.
if I look inside my account on TikTok, unfortunately only breaks up people into certain demographics. And so there is one huge category called over 65.
Mhm.
And if you look at the demographics of my followers, quite a lot of people in that category of over 65 follow me.
Mhm.
And you're helping me to realize just today in this conversation that I think part of it is that they see the metaphor that if you are told there's something wrong with you, if you're told you can't do something, you shouldn't do something,
Mhm.
like I've been told all my life, right? Like you've been told all your life,
Right. Yeah.
that we can go ahead and do it anyway. We can have
Well,
joy.
and we also have to do it 100 times better than the next one.
We have to do it, and we have to be amazing. Yes.
Yes, that's true.
Well,
That's what I see. I mean,
convenient that both of us are amazing.
Aren't we? I totally
That's
agree
easy.
with that. That's right. So don't ever tell me you're not.
Okay.
No,
Deal.
but I'm just saying to you, you know, that those are, yeah, it's hard because I thought of myself as not worthy
Yes.
because I was not being me.
Yes.
And I knew who I was, but I was not being me, but I had to go by this cultural thing, you know, and
yeah.
and
Can you
so,
say more about that?
yeah.
So everybody was telling you had to be something.
Absolutely. They had, well, they were telling me I had to be a wife.
Yep.
A wife and to a husband and a mother. I had to be a mother. And I also, if I were a teacher, that's was below what other professions were. Because of my age at that time, you just didn't even think as a woman that you would be a doctor or you know. And when I first went to my PhD program, my first classes, I was the only female in there, you know. And I would think differently than my student colleagues about all kinds of things, you know. So
I know what it's like to think differently than other people. So if folks are wondering what does trans mean, we're using it today in 2022 as this umbrella term for folks who are outside. You already mentioned it, and you set it up so beautifully, Barb, that folks who are outside the two boxes people are usually told are the only possibilities.
Right.
Yeah, man and woman are the two usual boxes, right? And just like you were told your whole life, woman means this, and you got to do this, and you got to do that. You know, I was given a box too. And so there's this whole movement now to say, well, why aren't we examining these boxes? Why aren't we looking at what might be possible outside what the boxes are?
I have a couple thoughts on that.
Yeah.
One is that when, well, first of all, you know, we used to think that you only could have a baby if you had connected this man and a woman, sex, right? And a penis and a uterus, well, or a vagina. And what happens is now we have in vitro fertilization. That's not the same. And we have to think about that. I mean, I have a grandson who is an IVF baby.
Yeah.
And that
is your grandson less? Do we think of your grandson less because of that? No, of course not.
No, but there are people who are.
Right.
and there's legislation now coming out of some of these ugly things that are happening right today that that's not a thing. That's not a thing.
Yeah.
Not acceptable. No, I shouldn't say a thing, not acceptable. So we have to think very differently today than we did when I was, having children. And
I'm going to disagree with you.
oh,
I'm
okay.
We're going to fight. Are you ready?
Yeah.
For drama. We think so much alike, you and I.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I would say it poetically. I would say, our hearts are in the same spot. And I know that you're encouraging people to think differently about the, what's possible and the boxes and stuff like that we were talking about. But when it comes right down to it, human beings being allowed to fully express themselves. You were doing that all the way back when you were teaching preschool,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And teaching college, by the way.
Yeah.
You're letting people be themselves. But, it's a further, I'm so glad you linked it to the work you already have done as a feminist,
Mm-hmm.
to this idea of transcending categories and moving beyond the assumptions we make about other people. And, all of that stuff is so foundational. Thank you for saying it.
Mm-hmm. 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 Well, to bring it up, one of the questions subtopics I was going to interject in this conversation was, because I live in a residential community,
Mm-hmm.
People here are probably 60 and older, and they've lived their whole lives, most of them, in a box. I know they wouldn't like me saying that, but it's true. I start talking about things and they'll go, "You what?" Anyway.
Give me an example.
Well, yes, when I say I drove for 5 years in an RV all around this country, they just don't comprehend that. They just don't. Right. If they're female, they do. They won't. They just have no sense of that. How could you do that? How could you do that? Weren't you afraid? All those things. But then, what? When I say I'm out here, I'm out in my community, in my residential community, and then they will say to me, "Well, what does this mean? Well, what does that mean?" And we have to have a lot of conversation around thinking in a different way, listening to one another and thinking in a different way, and respecting each other, which sometimes I will say I have trouble with that, because I just want people to just let the things fall down, because I bet there are a number of women in here who are probably lesbian, but they don't have any sense of that because they won't allow them to have any sense of that.
When you were talking, all I could think of was, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but knowing you, because we've gotten to know each other over the past couple minutes, knowing you the way I do, I bet you were more, I don't know if this will make sense, I bet you were more afraid not to drive around the country. So people ask me all the time, you make these videos, aren't you afraid? Because I was just on Fox News, right? And they talk about me and they gossip about me, right? Mm-hmm. And say mean things about me and stuff like that. And people say, aren't you afraid to be a public figure, to be doing this? And I always answer, I'm more afraid to act small, to not be doing my destiny, right? That makes me more afraid to have a smaller life, right?
Right.
And so you went on this big adventure because that's an expression of who you are. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you also brought up a beautiful, poetic, fundamental principle. People often think they have to get it before they can respect someone.
Mhm.
And it's the other way around. You
No,
should
that's true.
respect the human being, and then maybe over time you'll get it, right?
Get it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right too. I agree with you there. But when you've had decades of one thinking,
Yeah.
it's really difficult.
Yeah.
And you're still in that kind of mode, you know, that this is the way it is, and we don't step outside it.
Well,
know.
it sounds like you really empathize with that on a
Yeah,
certain
well,
level, right?
Sure. Because continue to put myself in the closet until I was 40, you know, and then.
Can I ask you a personal question about that?
Sure. Yes.
It's just you and me, Barb.
Okay.
Did you ever talk to your husband about it?
About being, no.
So you just eventually got a
not.
divorce, but you never told him why. You just.
Well, we got a divorce because the marriage just fell apart, and it fell apart.
That's a good reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we grew apart. We really grew apart. I mean, I was headed in a very different direction in my life. And the children were pretty much out on their own.
Mm-hmm.
They were on their own. And so it was time for us to go go. But I had a partner after I was divorced for 10 years.
That you drove around with?
No,
right?
I didn't. Well, I drove
RV?
around with her. But not in the RV.
Mm-hmm.
We did. We did a lot of driving. Is while I was having was getting my PhD, and she was actually a friend of mine in high school. We were actually friends in high school. We never talked about our feelings because you didn't do that.
But you had secret crushes on each other.
I know.
Didn't even talk about it.
Because I was not going to do that kind of thing. No, but after I was divorced, and she was divorced, and we got together, and I just said to her, "Why don't you come live with me in Tempe, Arizona?" And she had ovarian cancer, and where she was teaching said it was time for her to retire. So she retired. I said, "Why don't you come to Tempe, Arizona and live with me?" So she did. She did. She'd never been out of the state of Nebraska.
What was her name?
Her name was Melba.
Do you miss her?
Absolutely. Every day. And every day I think, what would our life have been if she had lived? And she died 22 years ago, July 19th, this coming July 19th. Yeah.
Can I ask another question?
Mm-hmm.
What would your life have been if in high school you were allowed to talk to each other about it?
Oh, I think it would. Well, I don't know. Her father.
You can't go back in time and find out, but.
Well, no, we can't.
Yeah.
That's true. I can't. Except that her father and mother were very strict. Her father bought her clothes, and she didn't have the freedom to even buy any new dress or anything like blouse. And they probably weren't. They probably weren't very happy, you know, when the two of us came to visit them. But
sure,
they also knew she wasn't going to stay there, you know, she wasn't going to leave. So we were definitely out in Arizona as a couple.
In Tempe. Mm-hmm.
In Tempe, and we had a commitment ceremony, and we exchanged rings. And
you had about how much time together? 5 years or so, you
10
said?
years, 10 years,
10 beautiful years. Good.
10 beautiful years. That's
Mhm.
right. Absolutely. And then we moved when I got a job at Gonzaga University. We moved there and we were out there. And then we moved to Nebraska and in the University of Nebraska, and we were out there, you know, and she would go places with me, like to faculty dinners or whatever, you know. We didn't hide it. We didn't hide it.
Yeah.
And then she died there in Nebraska. Yeah.
So what I'm getting is that people like you and me are full human beings.
Yes.
Is that what's up? Yeah. And sometimes people get caught up in the vocabulary words or trying to say the right thing or whatever that is, and look right past our humanity, huh?
Yes. I think that's the saddest thing. The saddest aspect of this man and woman Bible stuff,
Obsession.
obsession, is that our humanity is not a part of it. It's not a part of it.
Yeah, I love it. Because earlier you mentioned body parts and like science, and that's something people love to cling to. When people actually are born with all kinds of bodies and in all kinds of ways, and not to mention there are 7.5 billion human beings on the planet, 7.8 actually billion human beings, we're growing. And to expect all of us to fit in one box or another, just two, is rich. That's a lot to ask. So people ask me all the time.
Ignorance, I think. It's
Sure.
it's ignorance, but it's also fear. Oh my gosh. If you have to think about that, oh my gosh. And I think that is for some people, you know, the thought that they have to maybe change their thinking or what and be uncomfortable. Oof. That, because we have done it. We have.
Fear comes up. Oh, when you say we have done that, you mean you and I have done that? Yeah, we've been through that. Yeah. I tried to be the perfect Lutheran for a very long time. It didn't work.
No. I'd love to have had you in class.
Thank you. I think we would have had a good time.
I'd love to have had you in class. Anyway.
Yeah, well, you mentioned math, right? And your training in math. And people ask me all the time, well, what does trans mean? What is transgender? And it has to do with STEM, actually, because it has to do with the maths and sciences. And trans is a prefix that just means on the other side of. And cis is the opposite, so meaning on the same side of. And it actually goes for geography too. So you can have a transatlantic voyage to go to the other side of the Atlantic, and a cis-Atlantic voyage where you just go from Maryland to Virginia.
Right. That's true.
You just go to Connecticut, from Connecticut to New Hampshire, and that's cis-Atlantic voyage.
Jeffrey, I have not thought about it in that context, but I have people here in my residential community who ask me that. Well, what does that mean? And I ask them first, well, what do you think it means? And usually what happens is they say, oh, they're just making a choice. They just want to be they're just making a choice. So then I have to talk to them, you know, I try to.
You say?
Well, I say, well, let's look at this for a minute, because you're not made the same as I'm made. We might look the same, but we're not the same. And so, you know, the same thing goes for people who are trans and transgendering to what their real self is. Like I'm my real self. Yeah. And you're probably your real self, if you know. Probably. Well, really. Anyway, that's how I try to approach it. But I never thought about saying transatlantic, that's good. Thank you.
It comes up in the sciences too when people are describing electrons. So the electron can be on the other side of the atom, it can be on the same side, right? And they say trans or cis.
Well, the same thing goes for music.
Yeah,
when you think about it, music, because there are chordal structures.
Transposing and stuff like
right.
that.
Yeah. So you could use it all through that, the whole STEM situation.
So we just put those things in front of the word gender to describe somebody who's going beyond what their birth certificate says about them, right?
Yes.
In this life, and transitioning, which is opposed to cisgender, right? Transposing themselves, their soul. That's a beautiful poetic way to say it. Yeah. But again,
I'm so glad that we had this conversation. I'm telling you, it really. I'm going to.
And emphasizing what we have in common, what we all have in common.
Yes,
that's the beautiful part about it. Because
as
you just said, everyone you've ever encountered has gone through a transition of some kind, right? Has had that moment where they were told, you're this and you should stay in this box, and has felt, this is a weird image, I guess, but this is all I could think of when you were talking, like the edges of the box chafing you. Even if your birth certificate says woman and you are a woman today, right? You never transitioned, what we call cisgender, right?
Right.
Even if you've been that same thing your whole life, the box that is woman chafes sometimes for everyone that is in that box, right?
Right.
Yeah. And men too, by the way.
Yes. Yeah. And that, oh my, I got so much thinking. The other thing we're doing right now, is someone asked if we could have a meditation group. Meditation. So there are 5 of us at least who are meditating. We are meditating in the Zen tradition, which is.
I studied Zen, but I lived at a Zen monastery. Yeah.
Oh, you did? Oh, wonderful.
Indeed. I studied Zen for over 20 years with a teacher in the Bay Area in California.
Oh, gosh. Well, that's a whole nother world that's opened up to me right now, because we're doing the deep breathing, and sitting still. And we have a Zen teacher who has come, and we also have a gentleman who is here who is also practicing for 40 years. So we have some nice teachers, but well knowledgeable teachers. But I was asked by one of them to read The Wise Heart. Have you read The Wise Heart?
Yeah.
It's opened up a whole new world for me. I did not think of Buddhists as being anything but a religion. I didn't think about it being psychology.
It's sometimes called the first psychology.
Yes, it is. And I learned that. And so here I am now on another path. In this place, of all things, I never thought that would happen. But anyhow.
Isn't that just like life?
Yes.
Surprising.
Yes. Yeah. So, we transition to many, many things.
Yeah.
In that way.
You made me think of a couple things. So I was lucky enough to live at a monastery, study Buddhism for over 20 years. And I was lucky enough to study with a woman guide at the monastery.
Oh, yeah.
I write about it in the book. Sherry is her name. And so things like the way the world treats you, misogyny, unfair treatment, those sorts of things could be folded into a Buddhist practice. And relying on that wise heart to see through the structures and the hierarchies that humans seem to be addicted to.
Right, right.
And so you made me think of that, but you also made me think of a story. Can I tell you a short
Sure.
Zen story?
Oh, absolutely.
So we mentioned Catholicism and we mentioned Lutheranism. And in the Buddhist tradition, I was in the Soto Zen tradition, which is a specific, the Japanese style of
Japanese,
Zen.
yes, yes. This the man who's here studied that.
Studied Soto? Great.
Yeah.
And there is a set of stories. We don't have like gods or, we don't pray to deities or anything like that. But there's a set of stories around a character named Kuan Yin, who is what we call a bodhisattva. So somebody who helps other people get closer to being enlightened, right?
Okay.
But the interesting thing about this person is that throughout the 2,500 year history of Buddhism, Kuan Yin has taken the different forms and different genders to help people toward enlightenment. So there are some ancient statues where Kuan Yin is depicted as a man or as an angel with no gender or as a woman. There are statues with a mustache and breasts. I was like, what should I call those on the Zoom? They're just statues of this beautiful gender expression of this spiritual being who would take many forms to help others. And when I found that out, obviously it was very resonant for me. And I think that's also part of, what we've been talking about today. We're the box breakers. We're the ones who call out to other people. You can be free too. You can find your wise heart too. Right?
Yeah. I have to tell you, I did years ago some past life work, and I was Lakota Sue Squaw, who had 5 sons who were great warriors, and I was full of it. I was so proud of my boys. Anyway. What happened was each one of them, one by one, was killed. And I was left with nothing, because that's what my identity. Yeah, in a lone way. Yeah.
A lonely feeling.
So anyway, anyhow, that
sometimes
brought that back.
Well, no, I mean, it's the perfect thing to bring up right now in the conversation, because so many people sometimes our life feels bigger than us.
Yes.
And so many people were taught to live such a narrow, specific life.
Oh, yeah.
And so the reason that you and I are walking metaphors, right, is that our life, everyone's life, can be so much bigger than what they were told.
Yes. Oh, bye. I don't know how many, whatever's
by a bajillion
terabytes or whatever. Yeah, I know. That's right. And I still have life to live. My goodness, I just learned some wonderful things here. I don't know what else is next.
Well, you said it's going to surprise us.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And that's one of the gifts of meditation, by the way. You learn to be able to sit no matter what is coming up for you and no matter what is coming at you, right? And that is just such a valuable skill as an LGBTQ person, to be able to.
Oh, absolutely. It's meant,
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, that's right. It's meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
to this particular kind of meditation. Now, I have done meditation before, but not anything close to what we're doing. And it's just been I just want to go to it. Yeah, I mean, and I practice it. I practice it also in my apartment. But
Can I tell you a story about being at the monastery?
sure.
Because you just made me think of it.
Mhm.
So I went there and lived, and one time I was talking to a spiritual advisor, a spiritual
Mhm.
teacher,
Mhm.
and I was talking about, I feel like I'm in such a tug of war. My parents and everybody says I'm this way, and I'm saying I'm this way. Tug of
Mhm.
war. And my spiritual teacher just looked at me and said, "Are you sure you're not holding both ends of the rope?"
Oh. Mhm.
It's like, how often do we box ourselves in? How
Yes.
often do we put the rules on us
Oh, yeah.
within ourselves, right?
Mhm.
When we
Mhm.
could choose something free instead.
Well, I tell you, life can be so exciting if we're open to it.
Yeah, that's that question about fear, right?
Mhm.
That you brought up.
Mhm.
It's like, are you afraid? Jeffrey, are you afraid to wear makeup and make TikToks and have people say mean things to you on the internet? No, and not anymore.
Yeah.
When I mentioned briefly that Tucker Carlson on Fox News played my video and said things about me. And so in my inbox, I got all these emails with death
yeah,
threats
sure. Yeah.
in them.
I'm not surprised.
And I spoke to my partner, and we decided, yeah, I have to keep going and doing this work,
Mhm.
because what I care about is spreading love, being kind to people, showing people what we've been talking about, that you can live without fear. And to
Mhm.
me, that's worth any risk, really.
You also know by doing that
What?
you don't know whose life you might be saving.
You've saved some lives in your time.
Sure, I have, but you know what? You have too,
Yeah.
by being yourself. Being yourself. Because we don't know when they walk away from us.
I think at the end of the day, that is much more important than saying the right words, getting the vocabulary right, I think, yeah, being able to look in people's eyes and help them to see that people like us are humans, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. We just keep going, don't we? I love teaching. I love teaching.
Tell me
So
why. What did you love about it?
it was a way to begin to really look at the world. I mean, look at your surroundings. What does music sound like? What does singing sound like? Theater, I would do little theater things. I keep saying we need to do one act plays. We need to write one act plays in here and put them on. I'm thinking I'm going to get something going with that.
I feel like a soap opera, maybe something with a lot of drama.
Soap opera might be good soap opera.
Something with a lot of drama and like intrigue.
Yeah. Right. Well, I don't know. We'll see. But I just think, we need to be letting go and enjoying laughing and who we are. And
What I hear you saying is playing.
Yes, playing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's what the kids taught you, is this sense of you could play every day.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
It should. Anyway.
And what I love about, the movement that I'm a part of is that we're encouraging people to play with their gender, with
Mhm. Mhm.
those boxes, right? Those places where they were told, do this, don't do this.
Mhm.
You said something brilliant. I'm going to call you out on it.
What's that?
That it deeply has to do with fear.
Mhm.
But the idea is, if you stay in that box, you'll be safe.
Mhm.
And then someone like me or us comes along, and we're like, We
shapes.
don't care about boxes. Who cares?
Right.
And it's just this automatic, like, get that person in a box.
Or do
I
away
need
with
them to be in a
That's the
box
other
too,
thing.
or I won't be safe,
Right. Not even doing that. It's like
Yeah.
Erasing them.
Yeah. Yeah.
That then I really won't have to think about it.
Get them out of the picture.
Yeah, get them out of the picture. Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me in your picture today.
I'm glad to have you in mine.
In Zoom, I'm literally in a box.
That's right, it's true. Yeah. Well,
there's a
one of
metaphor
these
in there too.
days, technology will change and you'll just appear
We'll
in
be able
front
to
of
like
me.
be a
And it
hologram
won't be this
inside the
kind
room.
of thing. That's right. A hologram.
Yeah, exactly.
Won't that be wonderful? Think about that. Just think about the
I could see the weather.
opportunities of that, Gwen.
I could see the weather as a hologram in your room.
Yeah, that's right. No, and it used to be when I was teaching, and I would be teaching librarians. They wanted to get their master's degree, and I would say the technology is going to evolve so that we have electronic books and not, they were thinking on tape. I said, no. And anyway,
We ended up having someone tape too, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but I'm just saying, they couldn't visualize that maybe that there would be a format that would do that with. Well, guess what? We have them, and that's the only way I buy a book anymore. Is electronic. I don't buy
It was on the Kindle, yeah.
Yeah.
On
my iPad, yeah.
My book has sold a lot of electronic copies too. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you read? I haven't read your book. Do you read?
Why not?
No.
I'll send you one. I'll sign it and I'll send you one.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That'll be special.
Barb, I have to say, this has been a great honor. This has been one of the greatest pleasures of my life. So thank you.
Well, I must tell you the same thing, Jeffrey. It has been an absolute joy.
We have so much in common.
I know it's rare that I get to talk to someone who is thinking maybe ahead of me, but still thinking in circles.
No, I don't know if I'm thinking ahead of you. You're pretty.
I don't know, but the conversation.
Yeah. We
didn't have any lulls in this conversation. We were just going from one aspect of us to another aspect of us, both of us on the same plane. And that was a sheer joy. Sheer joy. Thank you.
You're a sheer joy. Thank you.
And I think to myself, what a